Lately I've been talking to people who are getting into cubing, and I find that they're kind of overwhelmed in trying to learn everything there is to the hobby. As with most things in the world, there are a lot of aspects to it, so I thought I'd make a video talking about everything I think a beginner cuber should know. I'm hoping this video will help people with the transition into cubing, and make learning about it a little bit less stressful. First of all, there are many branches of cubing, as I like to call them. When people think about the word cubing, I think they think about just solving a Rubik's Cube. And while that is obviously a core aspect, it's not all there is. There's collecting. People who aren't necessarily focused on getting faster times, but want to increase their collection. They want to have different types of puzzles, different brands, maybe a different look to each puzzle, and they typically like to display them. There's speed cubing, obviously, which is competing and trying to get faster times in different events. People who are really into speed cubing learn new algorithms, new methods, techniques, and such to decrease their times as much as possible. There's also modding, which I feel like is getting less popular now, but modding is basically altering the cube or puzzle and turning it into something else. People cut into the plastic, they sand it, they extend it, they fill it. There's actually all sorts of things you can do with modding. Those are the three main ones that come to mind for me, but there are also others. Some people are really into cubography, where they try to take aesthetically pleasing or creative pictures of puzzles. Something that's very important that you should know is notation and also color scheme. Notation is essentially the terminology we use to talk about algorithms. So we say turning the right side of a Rubik's Cube clockwise is R, and counterclockwise is R prime. You should really learn that and get familiar with that so it's easier to communicate and learn. Also, you should learn the official color scheme. A Rubik's Cube has 6 faces, meaning there are 3 pairs of opposite sides. Red is opposite from orange, blue is opposite from green, and white is opposite from yellow. Basically, if 2 colors are similar, they're going to be opposite from each other. When you first start cubing, you might be really interested in purchasing puzzles, which is natural, of course, and you might be wondering where exactly should I buy these puzzles from. Now, I personally buy all my puzzles from a store called TheCubicle. You will definitely hear this store name just floating about in the cubing community because it is pretty much the store. I feel like it's the most well-known and most purchased from store, especially in the US. By the way, I'm sponsored by them, so if you want, you can use the discount code CrazyCubingCarol at checkout and you can get 5% off. But yeah, they have a whole array of puzzles, WCA events, non-WCA, accessories, stickers, basically everything you need. So I would highly recommend checking them out. Their links to everything will be in the description as usual. But I'm sure you can also find other stores. It is important to note that most cubing stores are online. Actually, I don't think I've been to a store that's literally for cubing only. Now let's talk about some alterations to a Rubik's Cube. When people first purchase puzzles, they typically don't use it in its out-of-the-box state. People like to lubricate and tension their puzzles, for instance. This allows them to alter the puzzle so that it fits their liking. There's a whole array of lubricants, and I could make a completely separate video just talking about all the lubricants there are. But I would say generally lubricants typically make cubes have a softer feel and make them smoother. And you can buy lubricants from cubing stores as well, such as TheCubicle. Another option to adjust your cube when it's out of the box is to tension it. Now, Rubik's Cubes, and I'm going to talk specifically about 3x3s, are held together by screws. There's a core, and then there's pieces that fit around it, and the center pieces attach to the core. So these screws can be adjusted. Some people like looser cubes, some people like tighter cubes. It's really all up to personal preference. In fact, some cubes now have like sort of different tensioning systems that have gotten a little bit fancier, and there's like different tools you can get with different cubes. But as a general rule of thumb, tensioning is a way to adjust the cube to your liking. Another big thing if you're starting cubing is that you should know what the WCA is. WCA stands for World Cube Association. I'll link their website down below, which has tons of information about different records, competitions, rules for competing and such. If you want to go to your first competition, you'd probably go to the WCA website, go to competitions, search for your location, and it'll tell you what comps are near you. You need to make a profile on it, and once you compete, you'll get official times that will be put on there. So now let's talk about WCA events. There are cubing competitions out there, but you can't just compete with any puzzle. There are way too many puzzles to do that. So WCA events are the ones you can officially solve and compete in. So there are the N by N puzzles, or the 2x2 through 7x7. There's the Scube, the Square One, the Pyraminx, the Megaminx, the Clock. And there's also 3x3 through 5x5 blindfolded, 3x3 multi-blind, OH or one-handed, FMC, which is the fewest moves challenge, where you try to solve a 3x3 with as little moves as possible. And there were a few others that have existed, but they have since been taken down, such as Magic and Feet. Yes, that was an event. You solve a Rubik's Cube with your feet. When you first learn to solve a 3x3, you'll probably use the beginner's method, which is the one I would recommend. But once, or if you start speed cubing, there are other faster methods that you can learn. The biggest one is probably CFOP, which you might have heard of. It stands for Cross, F2L, OLL, and PLL, which is essentially a layer-by-layer method of solving a 3x3. And while that is the most popular one, it isn't the only one. There's also RU, for instance, or ZZ. I personally learned RU in like an hour. If you want to watch that video, you can. I haven't pursued it since, but honestly, it wasn't a bad method. I didn't dislike it at all. Obviously, when you solve cubes at competitions or at home, you need to time yourself somehow. There are apps on your phone that you can use to time. There's also a website called CS Timer, which a lot of cubers use. It provides a lot of tools such as scrambles and calculates your averages. You could also buy a physical timer. Most cubers use stack mat timers, but there have been other brands coming out with cubing timers. Stack mat timers are the ones you will find at competitions as well.
Nice. That's 6.16.
Fingertricks. What are Fingertricks? So if you have a Rubik's Cube at your house and you just started to learn how to solve it, or you just solved it, chances are you were turning each face with your wrist, sort of like this. And while that does get the job done in terms of solving the cube, it isn't the most efficient way. Cubers use something known as finger tricks, where different sides are turned by a single finger. People have all different styles of using finger tricks, but that's generally what it is. You sort of do a flick. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend learning how to finger trick by using some tutorial. It's sort of something that comes naturally, I think, as you solve cubes more and more. Now you might be wondering, how do I get faster once I just started learning? This is so cliche and you've probably heard it 1,000 times, but you just need to practice. Cubing is a very tedious and repetitive hobby. It's something you need to be doing constantly to improve. So just keep solving and you should get there. I should take my own advice. So that was everything I thought of, but I decided to go over to my Instagram. You can follow me at crazycubingcarol. And I asked on my story for some things that people had wished they knew when they first started cubing. So I picked out some of the ones I liked, and I'm gonna read them out to you. Guller_Tyler. Sorry, I literally don't know how to say anyone's name, so yeah. They said, don't always buy random puzzles. And I thought that was a pretty interesting but solid piece of advice. When you are first introduced to cubing, you're gonna see so many types of puzzles, and you're gonna be kind of inclined to just buy everything so that you can get exposed to it. But honestly, there are so many puzzles out there that it's gonna cost you $1 million or more, and it's just gonna take up a lot of space. So you should really focus on the puzzles that you're interested in and the ones you actually want, as opposed to just getting a puzzle because you don't have it. Brian Furr said that you should learn your cross on the bottom. When you learn beginner's method, you might learn cross on top. Cross is typically the first step of solving a 3x3. And speed cubers always solve their cross on the bottom. And that's something you should just get in the habit of when you first start, because it's kind of annoying to learn cross on the top, for instance, and then have to switch gears and have to learn cross on the bottom. Alicia Yu said, learn CN. CN stands for color neutral. When you're solving a Rubik's Cube, the first step is to make a cross, as I just said. A lot of people do cross on the white side, so they look at the white center and put it at the bottom and make the cross. While that's okay, you can actually get faster by not requiring white to be your starting color. For instance, you might be able to do red cross. And having this versatility can be really helpful. It's not necessary to be fast per se, but just having the ability is really nice. And finally, quite a few people said this one. I'm just gonna take this from Amelia Chung, and basically they said get involved in the community. Cubing is a very community-based hobby. When people go to competitions, very few of them are planning to go to break a world record or win the competition. People are going because they want to hang out with other cubers who share a similar passion as them. So even though I am very antisocial and don't like talking to people, it's definitely good to just talk to other cubers, join Discord servers, follow people on Instagram, watch YouTubers like me, and just generally talk to people. So that's about it for this video. If any of you watching have been cubing for a really long time and think I missed a piece of really solid advice, feel free to leave it in the comment section down below. And if you're a beginner cuber, welcome to the cubing cult. Yeah, I really hope this video sort of eased that transition and made cubing seem a little bit less overwhelming. But anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time on Crazy Being Carol. Bye!